All right. Hello, everyone. This is Clayton Taylor, Customer Success Coach here at From Now On. Today's video is going to be on stats in your FanX app. So we'll start in this PowerPoint just to get some background, and then we'll pop into the portal as well to take a look on there. So the brief agenda here is just to go over live stats, non-live stats, so things that are happening post-game or like season-long stats. We'll talk through the supported sports we have, portal setup, and then a few FAQs before we jump into the portal to demo. So for live stats, really there are three different options to bring live stats into the app for fans. So the first one is FTP setup, which lets you get native live stats. So that's what the view over here on the right-hand side, this first screenshot is showing the native view for stats. This is a one-time setup per sport, so we provide you with some credentials. Your SIDs can set us up on that machine for that sport, and it's compatible with StatCrew, Genius, DAX Stats, and Presto Stats. So we have kind of a wide range of ways to get stats into the app when it comes to different providers. And then the other thing to note about the FTP setup is that it does trigger auto notifications. So those are the game start notifications, halftime, end of game, those types of things. So the other way to get native stats into the app is through Stat Broadcast. So if you're a Stat Broadcast partner, you're able to take advantage of this option. And this will work for all games where the home team uses Stat Broadcast. So this gives you not only access to the stats for all of your home games, but if your opponent happens to be a Stat Broadcast customer and you're playing the game at their facilities, we'll get native live stats for those as well. The nice thing about the Stat Broadcast setup is there's actually no setup required on your guys' end. And again, this will also trigger those same auto notifications as we get through the FTP setup in option 1. And then the third way to get stats into the app is just via web view. So that's the view you're looking at over here on the far right, where essentially we're going to enter a link out to the web stats and display those stats in a web view within the app. This will not trigger those auto notifications. So if you do want notifications to go out for those games, it's something that you'll have to have someone do manually. So there's also ways to get stats into the app post-game. So the first option here, this import game XML file, would be for if you're doing those web view stats and you want to at least have the stats available natively post-game. So again, let those fans get in there and look at the box scores, even if you don't have the native live stats set up. And you can do that for any games that you have that third-party web view set up for. And then second is to import the season XML file, and this will allow fans to view the season team stats, category leaders, and player stats in the app. So you're seeing essentially both of these screenshots are being pulled from the season XML file to update pass yards per game and a whole bunch of other team stats, and then also player stats over here on the right. So for season XMLs, it's great if we can do it after every single game to keep these updated. If you wanted to do it weekly, just so that they're staying updated, that's probably decent as well. And a quick look at our supported sports. So football, basketball, volleyball, hockey, soccer, baseball, softball. So these are the fully supported sports today. Meaning that you can get the native stats, you can get the team and season stats in there as well. For all the other sports, we'd be looking at the web view option. So that option 3 to link out to your web provider to provide those stats for fans. And then we can also link to like post-game box scores, recaps, anything like that, particularly for sports like golf, who don't have necessarily like a win or a loss associated with them. You just kind of want to recap the event in general. So all that is possible as well. And then here's a quick look at the portal side of things. So first is the team level setup. So basically each team, you're going to be able to select your stat provider and enter your stat ID. And you can do that, each team can have as many stat providers as you'd like. Typically what we're seeing on this screen is probably one that's either Stat Crew, DAX Stats, Genius, or Presto, and then potentially a second one that is Stat Broadcast. So we'll help you find these IDs. Basically, we just need to look at the XML files for each sport, and occasionally it does vary sport to sport, so that's why we have it set up at that team level. And then for game setup, this is just a look at the home screen dashboard, and the only reason I have this on here is to indicate that this stats section is pretty important on this page to be able to tell, are we expecting stats for a particular game, and then what is the source of those stats. So we can see the baseball and softball games here are both going to be stat broadcast supported, so we'll get the native live stats. But then these softball games at Iowa, we're getting an NA message here for the stats, which probably means that Iowa doesn't have stat broadcast, so we won't be able to get those native stats. So this lets us know that we need to give this game some attention and potentially go add a external URL, since we know we won't be expecting the native stats. So that's what this men's tennis at Iowa, they've got the URL in there because I can see, I'm not expecting native stats. So some frequently asked questions, how do I know what my stat IDs are? As I mentioned, we'll help you find those just looking through the XML files and make sure that we have those added for each team. And the same goes for stat broadcast IDs. We go to the stat broadcast website and we're able to find the IDs on there. So what should you do if stats aren't working? During business hours, you can call or email your customer success coach. And then for anything urgent after hours, or if you aren't able to get in touch with your coach for whatever reason, you're able to text our support line. And this goes straight to our support team on the weekends and at nights so that they're able to look into the issue on demand there. And then customizing the score alerts that go out for each sport. So you do have some ability to do this. You can include sponsors on those alerts, and you can control the name that shows up for your school. For example, you can have ACTEC instead of Pandas. And you can also turn off those auto alerts for an individual sport so that you can manually send those out during a game. So the best use case for this would be if you have like a big rivalry game and you want to have someone on staff kind of custom crafting those notifications rather than just having the automatic text in there, you're able to do that. So an example of what I'm talking about there is rather than just your basketball men, end of first, Pandas 30, Panthers 31, you could have someone crafting a kind of custom alert to say, hey, post-game alert, Pandas lead the Panthers with just 5:21 left to play, and include some additional information on there as well. All right, so taking a brief look at the portal. So again, this stats segment here is what we mentioned earlier. So I can tell that both these games we're expecting stats from Stat Crew. If there was no stats available, you would see that same NA message that we saw before. And then on my baseball team here, this is where I'm going to see those stat providers. And if I find out that there's a new ID that we're going to be using, I can just pop in here really quick, select my source, and add the ID. And then the last thing I'll mention in terms of stats is just to look at this import data. So this is how you would import Stat Crew files post-game. So I mentioned you can import the game XML file and the season XML file. They're both done in the same way. You'll select this data source, which is Stat Crew. And this actually also works for any Genius files, DAX Stats files, those types of things too. So don't worry too much about that. Select my team. And then I'm just going to drag and drop that XML file in and tap the import button. So again, you can do that for game XML files, update the game stats. You can also do it for the season XML files to update season-long player stats and season-long team stats. So that's all I had for you guys today. Hopefully this was good background into kind of how stats work on the app. Certainly check out our FanX Success Center for some more information on stats, or reach out to your customer success coach if you have any additional questions. Thanks, guys.